You know what's funny about getting old? It's not your body that gives up first. It's everybody else's belief in you. I was 68 years old when they all decided I was done. Finished. Used up. My son Michael, my daughter Sarah, my buddies from the Rotary Club, even the girl at the grocery store checkout who couldn't have been older than 23. They all looked at me the same way, like I was already halfway to the grave and just too stubborn to lie down. Too old to learn new things. Too old to start over. Too old to matter. Well, let me tell you something about being too old. It all started on a Tuesday morning. I remember because Tuesdays were grocery days. My wife Martha, God rest her soul, she always did the shopping on Tuesdays. Kept that routine for 43 years of marriage. So after she passed, I kept it going. Gave me structure, you know? Something to do besides sit around and wait for my children to call and check if I was still breathing. So I'm standing there in the checkout line at Kroger, and the register freezes up. Young girl working it starts panicking, hitting buttons, calling for her manager. Manager comes over. Kid couldn't have been 30, and he's jabbing at the screen like it personally offended him. Now, I spent 32 years working as a systems engineer for IBM. I built some of the first commercial computer systems back when most people thought computers were just fancy calculators. So I'm watching these two struggle, and finally I lean over and say, real polite like, "Excuse me, but have you tried restarting the terminal?" Sometimes a hard reboot. That manager, he didn't even look at me. Just held up his hand like I was a child interrupting the adults and said, "Sir, we've got this under control. These systems are very complex." Complex. He said complex. Like I was some doddering old fool who didn't know what a computer was. I didn't say anything. I just stood there while they fumbled around for another 10 minutes before they finally did exactly what I told them to do in the first place. And you know what? It worked. Register came right back up. The girl bagged my groceries. Neither of them said a word to me. Not, "Thank you for waiting." Not, "Sorry for the trouble." Nothing. Because in their eyes, I was just invisible. Just some old man taking up space in their day. I went home, put my groceries away, made myself a sandwich I didn't really want to eat. And I sat down in this very chair, and I thought, is this it? Is this what my life is now? Being dismissed? Being invisible? That afternoon, my son Michael called. We did our usual thing. He asks how I'm doing. I say fine. He tells me about his job, his kids, whatever. Normal stuff. But then he says, "Hey Dad, Sarah and I have been talking, and we think maybe it's time we have a conversation about your living situation." Your living situation. That's what he called it. Not your home or where you live. Your living situation. Like it was a problem that needed solving. He went on about how the house was too big for one person, how the yard was too much work, how maybe I should consider one of those senior living communities. You know the ones, they call them active adult communities or independent living, but we all know what they really are. Waiting rooms. Waiting rooms where they put old people until it's time to move them to the next level down, and then the next level, until finally. I told him I was fine. Told him I could take care of myself just fine. And you know what he said? He said, "Dad, we're not saying you can't take care of yourself right now. We're just thinking ahead. You're at that age where things start to decline, and we want to make sure you have support before you need it." That age. That age where things start to decline. I'm 68 years old. I walk 3 miles every morning. I'm on my own lawn. I change my own oil. I cook. I clean. I pay my bills on time. I do the crossword puzzle every day, and I get it right more often than not. But because I've got some gray hair and some wrinkles around my eyes, suddenly I'm declining? But here's the thing that really got me. Michael said, "Dad, you need something to keep you busy. You can't just sit around the house all day with nothing to do." At least at one of these communities, there's activities. There's people your age. There's purpose. Nothing to do. No purpose. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed. The same bed Martha and I shared for 43 years. And I stared at the ceiling, and I thought about everything Michael said. Everything that cashier implied. Everything I'd been feeling for the past 3 years since Martha died. And I realized, maybe they were right. Not about me needing to go to some senior warehouse, but about me needing purpose. Because the truth was, I had been sitting around. I had been just existing, going through the motions. Grocery shopping on Tuesdays, church on Sundays, doctor appointments on whenever they told me to show up. But that didn't mean I was done. It meant I'd gotten comfortable being done. And there's a difference. The next morning, I'm driving to get my blood pressure medication refilled, another exciting activity in the life of a retired person, and I drive past the community college. I'd driven past it 1,000 times before, never really noticed it. But that day, there was this big banner hanging out front. Fall registration now open. It's never too late to learn. It's never too late to learn. I pulled into the parking lot. Didn't even think about it. Just pulled in. Sat there in my truck for a few minutes, looking at all these young people walking around with their backpacks and their phones, laughing and talking, and I thought, what the hell am I doing? But then I thought about Michael saying I had nothing to do. I thought about that manager calling the computers very complex. I thought about Martha and how she always used to tell me, Robert, your problem is you're too smart to be content doing nothing. So I got out of the truck and I walked into that admissions office. The woman behind the desk looked up at me with this confused smile. You could see her trying to figure out what I was doing there. Finally, she said, Can I help you, sir? Are you looking for the senior center? That's actually down the road about 2 miles. The senior center. Like that's the only reason an old man would walk into a college. I said, No, ma'am. I'm looking to enroll in classes. Her smile got even more confused. Oh, are you enrolling a grandchild? We'll need them present too. No, I said. I'm enrolling myself. You should have seen her face. She tried to hide it, but I saw it. That little flicker of surprise, followed by this patronizing kind of warmth, like, oh, isn't that sweet? The old man wants to take a pottery class or learn watercolors. She pulled out a course catalog and started flipping to the continuing education section. You know, the classes for seniors, beginning computer skills, introduction to digital photography, that kind of thing. I stopped her. I said, Ma'am, I'm looking at the regular degree programs. Computer science, specifically. Now she really looked confused. Sir, those are full degree programs. They're quite rigorous and... I'm aware, I said. I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Purdue University. I spent 32 years working in systems engineering. I know what rigorous means. Her whole demeanor changed after that. She pulled out the right forms, explained the application process, told me what I'd need to do. And an hour later, I walked out of there having signed up for 4 classes. 4. Introduction to Modern Programming, Data Structures, Computer Architecture, and Calculus 2, because apparently calculus had changed since I took it 50 years ago. I got home and I was excited. For the first time in 3 years, I felt something other than just empty. I felt like maybe I wasn't done after all. Then I called Michael to tell him. Thought he'd be proud, you know? His old man doing something proactive, keeping his mind sharp. He laughed. Not a happy laugh. Not an impressed laugh. He laughed like I'd just told him I was joining the circus. And then he said, Dad, that's great. Really, good for you, keeping busy. But you know these are real college courses, right? With homework and tests and everything? They're not like those adult education classes where everyone gets a participation trophy. I said, I'm aware, Michael. I went to college once before. I seem to remember how it works. And he said, I just don't want you to be disappointed if it's too much. There's no shame in dropping out. At least you tried, right? No shame in dropping out. At least you tried. That first day of class. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was terrified. I got there 45 minutes early. Sat in my truck in the parking lot, watching these kids stream in. Kids. They were 18, 19, 20 years old. I had underwear older than some of these students. And I sat there thinking, what the hell am I doing? I'm 70 years old. Well, 68. But who's counting? And I'm about to walk into a classroom where I'm older than everyone, including the professor. But then I remembered Michael's laugh. I remembered that cashier's dismissive wave. I remembered lying in bed feeling like my life was over just because I'd reached some arbitrary age that society decided meant I was useless. So I grabbed my backpack. Yeah, I bought a backpack, sue me, and I walked across that parking lot with my head held high. The classroom was in the engineering building, 3rd floor. By the time I got up those stairs, I was breathing a little hard. Note to self: 3 miles of walking on flat ground doesn't prepare you for stairs. But I made it. I walked in, and every head turned. And I mean every head. 25 students, and every single one of them stopped what they were doing and stared at me like I'd grown a second head. One kid had the nerve to say, "Sir, I think the faculty offices are down the hall." I said, "I'm not faculty. I'm a student." You could have heard a pin drop. I took a seat in the 3rd row, not too eager in the front, not hiding in the back, and I pulled out my notebook. Yes, a notebook, with paper and a pen. The kid next to me was typing on a laptop that probably cost more than my first car. The professor walked in a few minutes later. Young guy, maybe 40, one of those hipster types with the beard and the skinny jeans. He introduced himself as Professor David Chun, and then he did that thing professors do on the first day, went around the room having everyone introduce themselves. Tell us your name, your major, and why you're taking this course. One by one, these kids introduced themselves. Computer science majors, engineering students, couple of business majors who needed the credit. All of them saying things like, I want to work in Silicon Valley, or I want to create the next big app. Then he got to me. I said, my name is Robert Henderson. I don't have a major because I graduated from college in 1975 with a degree in electrical engineering. I'm taking this course because 3 days ago, a 20-something grocery store manager told me that computers were too complex for me to understand. The room went absolutely silent. You could feel the tension, the confusion, the judgment. Professor Chun just stared at me for a long moment, and I thought, great, here it comes. He's going to politely suggest I drop the class. But then he smiled, a real smile, and he said, well, Mr. Henderson, I have a feeling you're going to bring some valuable perspective to this class. Welcome. That was the first time in months someone had made me feel like I wasn't invisible. But the other students? Oh, they were a different story. I could feel them watching me all through that first class. Some looked amused, like I was entertainment. Some looked annoyed, like I was taking up space that should have gone to a real student. And some just looked uncomfortable, like they didn't know what to make of me. After class, as I was packing up my stuff, took me longer than the kids because, well, old hands don't move as fast. This one student came up to me. Cocky-looking kid with his hair pulled back in a man bun, wearing a hoodie that said code is poetry. He said, hey, no offense or anything, but do you really think you can keep up with this class? I mean, the material moves pretty fast, and a lot of us have been coding since we were kids. I looked at that boy, and I said, son, I was writing COBOL and Fortran before your daddy was born. I programmed punch cards. I debugged systems that took up entire rooms. I've forgotten more about computers than you've learned. So yeah, I think I can keep up. His face turned red as a tomato. He mumbled something and walked away real quick. But here's the truth. I wasn't entirely sure I was right. That first week almost broke me. Not the material itself, the concepts I understood, but everything else. The pace, the technology, the way they did things now. Everything was online. Assignments submitted through portals I'd never heard of. Lectures recorded and posted to websites with interfaces that made no sense. Discussion boards and group chats on apps I had to download. I spent hours just trying to figure out how to navigate the school's learning management system. Hours. I'd be sitting at my computer at 11 o'clock at night, squinting at the screen, clicking through menus, trying to find where to submit my homework. The kids probably did it in 30 seconds. It took me 30 minutes. My daughter Sarah called one night around 10. She heard the frustration in my voice and asked what I was doing. I told her I was trying to submit an assignment, but I couldn't figure out the system. There was this long silence on the phone, and then she said, real gentle-like, "Dad, maybe this isn't the right time for this. Maybe you should wait a semester, get more comfortable with the technology first." Wait a semester, which really meant drop out. I said, "Sarah, I appreciate your concern, but I'm not quitting." She said, "I'm not saying quit. I'm just saying there's no shame in admitting when something's too much. You've already proven you can do it just by enrolling. Nobody would think less of you if." I hung up. Not angry, just, I couldn't hear it. Not from her too. That night, I'm not gonna lie, I thought about dropping out. I was exhausted. My eyes hurt. My back hurt from sitting at the computer. My brain hurt from trying to learn all this new technology on top of the actual coursework. And I was behind. Way behind compared to these kids who'd grown up with smartphones in their hands. But then, right before I was about to close my laptop and give up for the night, I figured it out. The stupid portal system. I clicked the right button, and my assignment uploaded. And you know what I saw? Submitted successfully. Such simple words. But in that moment, they meant everything. The real test came 3 weeks in. Professor Chin assigned us a group project. He randomly assigned the groups, and I got put with 3 students. Tyler, that was the kid with the man bun, a quiet girl named Priya, and another guy named Josh. Our first meeting was supposed to be on Zoom. Now, I'd done a couple video calls with my grandkids, but I'd never used Zoom for something formal like this. I spent an hour beforehand watching YouTube videos on how to use it. I logged on 5 minutes early, like I do everything. Professional habits die hard. And I waited, and waited. The meeting was supposed to start at 7. At 7:15, Tyler finally showed up. "Oh, hey, Bob. What's up?" "Bob. Not Mr. Henderson, not Robert. Bob." I said, "The meeting was supposed to start at 7. He said, "Yeah, man, people always run late to these things. Chill, chill." He told me to chill. At 7:25, Priya and Josh finally showed up. Both of them were eating dinner, both of them clearly doing 3 other things while they were on the call. Tyler took charge immediately, started talking about dividing up the work. And then he said, "Okay, so I'll handle the algorithm design. Josh, you do the front-end interface. Priya, you take care of the database. And Bob, you can work on the documentation." Documentation. He wanted me to write the instruction manual while they did the real work. I said, "Tyler, I'd like to work on the algorithm design. That's actually my area of expertise." He laughed. Actually laughed at me. "Dude, no offense, but that's like the hardest part of the project. Maybe you should stick with something more your speed." Priya looked uncomfortable. Josh kept eating his dinner, not paying attention. I took a deep breath and said, "Tyler, I appreciate your concern, but I've designed algorithms for NASA subcontractors, for telecommunications systems, for financial institutions. I think I can handle an introductory level class project." He said, "Yeah, but that was ancient technology, right? This is modern programming. It's different. Ancient technology. Like I'm some kind of dinosaur who carved code into stone tablets." I said, "Fine. You're right. I'll handle the documentation." Tyler looked satisfied. They divided up the rest of the work. We ended the call, and I sat there in my empty house feeling smaller than I'd felt in years. 78 years old. All that experience, all that knowledge, and I was too ancient to be useful. Wait, no? 68. I was 68. Funny how when you feel that worthless, you age yourself even more in your head. But then something happened. I got angry. Really angry. The kind of anger that's cold and focused and productive. I spent the next week building that entire project myself. Front end, back end, database, algorithm, documentation, everything. I worked on it every night until 2, 3 in the morning. My eyes were bloodshot. My back was screaming. My daughter called twice and I didn't answer because I didn't want to hear the concern in her voice. But I didn't care. I was on a mission. I used every trick I'd learned in 32 years of engineering. I optimized the algorithm in ways these kids hadn't even thought of. I made it clean, efficient, elegant. And then I documented every single line of code so thoroughly that even a complete beginner could understand it. The day before the project was due, Tyler sent a message to our group chat. "Hey guys, I'm having trouble with the algorithm. Might need a couple extra days." I replied, "I have a complete working prototype if you'd like to review it." My phone rang 30 seconds later. It was Tyler. You built the whole thing?" I said I did. But the algorithm alone should have taken days. It did take days, Tyler. 4 of them. Can I see it?" I sent him the files. 10 minutes went by. Then my phone rang again. Tyler's voice was different this time. Quieter. "Mr. Henderson, this is really good. Like, really good. Better than anything I could have done." I didn't say anything. He said, "I'm sorry. I was a jerk. I made assumptions about you because of your age, and that was wrong." I said, "Tyler, I appreciate the apology. And yes, you were a jerk. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to use my framework, but you 3 are going to understand every single line of code. I'm not doing your work for you, but I'll teach you how it works." "Really? You do that?" "On one condition," I said. "Stop calling me Bob. It's Robert or Mr. Henderson." He laughed. A real laugh this time. "Yes, sir, Mr. Henderson." For the next 4 days, we met every evening. Real meetings this time. Everyone on time, everyone focused. And I walked them through that entire project. Not just the code, but the thinking behind it. The problem-solving process. The debugging strategies. The optimization techniques I'd learned over decades. Priya told me later that she learned more in those 4 days than she'd learned in the entire semester up to that point. Presentation day came. We got up in front of the class, and Professor Chin asked Tyler to explain the algorithm. Tyler looked at me. I nodded. And that boy explained it perfectly, because he actually understood it now. He'd learned it. After class, Professor Chin pulled me aside. He said, "Mr. Henderson, that was exceptional work." I said, "Thank you." Then he said something I'll never forget. He said, "You know, I could use someone with your experience and patience as a teaching assistant next semester. The pay isn't much, but you'd be helping students. Would you be interested?" I'm not going to lie to you. I had to turn away for a second because my eyes got all misty. Here I was, thinking I was too old to matter, and someone was asking me to teach, to share what I knew, to help shape the next generation. I told him I'd be honored. That night, I called Michael. "Dad, how's school going?" You still hanging in there? I said, Michael, I got straight A's this semester. All 4 classes. And Professor Chin asked me to be a teaching assistant next term. The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. Then Michael said, real quiet, Dad, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you. And then even quieter, I'm sorry. For what? For doubting you. For making you feel like you were too old. For laughing when you told me you were enrolling. I said, Michael, you weren't wrong to worry. I am old. That's just a fact. My body's slower, my eyes aren't what they used to be, and I can't pull all-nighters like I did when I was 20. But being old doesn't mean being finished. It just means I've got more experience to draw from and maybe less time to waste on things that don't matter. We talked for 2 hours that night. Really talked, like we hadn't in years. You know what the best part was, though? About 6 months later, I'm back at that same Kroger, and I see that same manager. The one who told me the computers were too complex. The register froze again. Same problem. And he was standing there jabbing at the screen, getting frustrated. I walked up and said, Excuse me, I know a thing or two about computers. May I? He looked at me. Really looked at me this time. And maybe he recognized me. Maybe he didn't. But he stepped aside and said, Please. I fixed it in about 30 seconds. Hard reboot, just like I'd said the first time. He thanked me, asked me how I knew how to do that. And I said, Oh, I've been taking some classes, learning new things. Turns out you're never too old. I'm 73 now. Wait, no. See, I keep doing that. I'm 72. Just had a birthday last month. Finished my 2nd bachelor's degree last spring, this time in computer science. Starting a master's program in artificial intelligence this fall. I teach 3 classes at the community college now as an adjunct professor. I mentor students every semester. And Tyler? That kid graduated, got a job at Google, and he still emails me every month asking for advice on his projects. My kids finally get it. They're proud now. Sarah tells everyone her father's getting a master's degree at 72. Michael brags about me to his friends. My grandkids think I'm the coolest grandpa ever because I can help them with their computer homework. But here's what I need you to understand. This isn't just a story about me proving people wrong. Though, let's be honest, that was pretty damn satisfying. This is about refusing to accept the limitations other people put on your life. When society tells you you're too old, too slow, too outdated, too irrelevant, you have a choice. You can believe them, or you can prove them wrong. I spent 32 years being productive and valuable. Then I spent 3 years just existing, waiting, going through the motions. And I was miserable, even though I didn't want to admit it to myself. But when I walked into that classroom, when I struggled through those first assignments and wanted to quit, when I spent hours learning new technology that came naturally to people 50 years younger than me, that's when I felt alive again. Not because I was competing with them, not because I needed to prove I was as smart as a 20-year-old, but because I was challenging myself, because I was growing, because I refused to be done just because someone else decided I should be. Listen to me. If you're sitting there thinking you're too old to start something new, you're wrong. If you think your best days are behind you, you're wrong. If you think you've got nothing left to contribute, you're wrong. I was 68 when I started over. If I live to 90, that's 22 more years of doing something that matters, something that makes me excited to wake up in the morning. 22 years I'd have wasted sitting in a chair feeling sorry for myself if I'd listened to everyone who said I was too old. So no, I wasn't too old to start. And neither are you. They said I was too old. They were wrong.